Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. My name is Edwige Simon, and I am the Senior Director of Learning and Technology Solutions at the International Center for Language Studies. And today we are going to talk about the upcoming book that we are going to read in our Language Educator Book Club. Before I start having this conversation with Karen, I would like to say a few words about the book club. The book club has been around for, I think, 8 or 9 years by now. It started at the University of Colorado Boulder with me. And then when I moved to ICLS, located in Washington, D.C., I revived the book club and then I continued running the book club. Few words about ICLS. We are a language school. We're a language training school, and we are located in Washington, D.C. We offer intensive language training for government agencies. We also have a vibrant ESL program where we have students from all over the world come to DC and study with us. And we also have an internship program. And we also offer professional development courses and programs for language educators, and this is where the book club comes in. The book club is completely free. You are responsible for acquiring the book, and usually we work with gracious authors like Karen and Sarah and Megan, and we get some coupon codes to get a little discount. And we read 2 to 3 books per year. And usually we vote for the book. By now, the book club community has several thousand members. Not everybody reads every book every time, but everybody gets a chance to vote for the book. This fall, we are going to read Learner Feedback for Language Growth. And the authors of the book are Megan Butke. Am I saying that? Yeah?
That is correct.
Okay, Karen Nickel and Sarah Strauss. And today, Karen Nickel is with us, and we're going to I wanted to have just an informal conversation. We always have a Q&A after the book club where we discuss the content of the book, but I was curious to get to know Karen, get to know the reasons behind the book, how it came about how do you write a book with 3 authors, and things like that. So let's get going. Before we do anything, Karen, do you want to say a few things about yourself, what you teach,
Sure.
where you teach, how you became a teacher, the usual intro questions?
Sure, I can introduce myself. Um, so I've been in education about 35 years. Most of that time I was a German teacher in high school, but I've taught English to English language learners, and I've taught a little bit of elementary and middle school and high school in the United States. Now I'm working with university students, so I've kind of run the gambit. Oh, I did some community ed as well. But I retired from the classroom. I was a world language coordinator. I was a peer coach. Wore lots of hats during the time that I was teaching. Now I'm retired from that world. I didn't retire very well, though, because I ended up still working. So now I am working for ACTFL, the American Council for Teaching Foreign Languages. I'm a consultant for them and an author. That's who published the book. I'm also an independent consultant and coach. And then I work for Concordia College in Moorhead, Minnesota. Because I live in Minneapolis, I observe the teachers who are doing their student practical experiences in student teaching here. And then I work at the University of Minnesota teaching an online curriculum design course. So that's a little bit about me. And yeah, I think as the questions come, we'll talk more.
We'll fill in the blanks.
Absolutely.
So I suppose you'll be at the ACTFL convention next month.
I won't. I'm going to miss this one. I have been for the last couple of years, but Megan will be there, I know. She's the only one of the three of us that can make it this particular year. But
Right.
sure.
I'm going to miss this one myself, but I hope to be there next year. I was actually just in
Mm.
New Orleans for a conference last month. So, tell us, what inspired you to write an entire book on learner feedback? Like usually it's a small passage, at the end of a chapter. I haven't seen an entire book dedicated to this topic. So what prompted you and your co-authors to tackle this topic?
Sure. Well, we are three co-authors, so each of us have a slightly different journey. But we were all asking that question, how do we provide feedback that promotes language growth? And to do that, we really were also asking that question of, how do we describe language and how do we measure language growth? So, might be a little bit of a longer story, but it probably started for me. Like I said, I've been in education about 35 years. So back in 1998, when the proficiency-based instruction was really brought to the forefront, perhaps through the ACTFL performance guidelines, that's probably when I started thinking about it. And then our department, we actually presented on what were then called the Lingua Folio can-do statements back at the Central States Conference. And we were teaching using integrated performance assessment before the book came out. We were just using the little booklet from ACTFL. So those were really, early inspirations. I was the world language coordinator when Megan Budke joined our district. And so together as a department, we just read a lot. We had watch parties to view a lot of different ACTFL webinars. We invited guest speakers. We attended tons of conferences. We had so many discussions that we joked at that time we should be writing a book, but we just didn't get it done then. But we basically used, backward design in our own experience, and that was super powerful for us because what we did was we really developed a way to talk to each other across languages and levels, and that just had not been my experience before that. So when Megan became our next district world language coordinator, she furthered the work around the 2013, I believe it was, can-do statements. And again, it was just about collaboration. And we were so focused on how do we give feedback. Feedback seemed to be the key. So Megan also became a consultant and she worked with Sarah's district and brought some of us over to work with them. So that's how the three of us got connected. So through that work, it was Sarah's idea to write this particular, this particular book emerged from that work. And it really is about deeply understanding how you measure language growth so that you can move learners along that proficiency scale. And, that work really confirmed the need for a guidebook. And at that time, it just didn't exist. So in August of 2020, we signed a contract with ACTFL to write the book. And we really wanted to create a guidebook outlining more than just the steps that we'd taken, or we really wanted to create a guidebook that we wished we'd had. We wanted to incorporate the can-do statements into the assessment rubrics. We wanted to really dig in and take the time to explore the wealth of research into why specific domains, rubric domains are so important, and how does language actually show up in learner performance. So we wanted to give educators performance indicators so that they could really, that capture the important stages. And we wanted to show this through our own learners' work in novice, intermediate, and advanced performance. So we wanted a guidebook so that we could dig in, support each other, and promote language growth, and really, most of all, empower learners.
Great. Great. That makes total sense. And I am familiar with Lingua Folio. It's funny because it popped up in a conversation I had during a meeting yesterday, and we were actually wondering whether this could be a good product to implement in our programs. We were just looking at it.
Sure.
So the book was written by three authors. You kind of explained how the three of you came together. But how do you write a book with three people? How do you divide the work? How does that work?
Well, it could probably work in multiple ways, but for us, we really are all co-authors of this book. So first, we made some decisions about like the basic format with the introductory chapters, and then the rubric chapters, which language use, text type, intercultural communication, impact, and communication strategies. Those are our rubric chapters. We decided to divide each of those chapters to give explanations, learner samples, examples of feedback assessment, multiple templates, tools, all of that, as well as strategies. And then we knew we wanted to include that learner work as samples. And so we focused on novice, intermediate, and advanced. And I do have to say this book does focus on just the output, the interpersonal and presentational aspects of language. But depending on the chapter then, and depending on our own experiences, we deeply researched aspects of language acquisition and development. And usually one of us would mock up the ideas in outline form, then another would write a first draft, and then we just tackled it. We questioned, we suggested, we revised, we did lots and lots of rewrites on our Google Documents. Megan and Sarah and I met once a week on Zoom for the 3.5 to 4 years that it took to write the book. You got to remember we began this in the lockdown portion of the pandemic. And we had regular check-ins with ACTFL, editors at ACTFL, some really great experts in various fields. And we met almost monthly with Paul Sandrock, who really helped us shape the book.
So it's nice to see that working with ACTFL, they really provided you with a lot of support. I was curious about this process as
Mhm.
well.
Mhm.
So you wrote this book as you were writing this book, and now that you've written this book, what do you hope teachers will take away from it?
Yeah, I think there's kind of maybe four things. Well, we hope the book inspires educators, first of all, to consider how feedback is so vital to the relationship they build with their learners.
Right.
I we were chatting about this right before this started, and I really like to point out that feedback makes up really the primary way that the primary communication of educators and learners. So being able to give effective feedback is really empowering to both learners and educators. Um, and the book can help readers to become familiar with those really powerful ACTFL tools like the proficiency guidelines and the performance descriptors, the can-do statements. These are much of what we used in addition to other research, but we use these to create the rubric domains, excuse me, and the performance domain indicators. Um, also, I do think that the final chapter is on grading and reporting. It's a hot topic, so it may challenge, and I hope it does challenge some thinking, but it also really gives educators a roadmap for implementing some equitable grading practices. Grading that focuses not only on feedback and learner growth, but that also really honors learners and their learning. And then maybe lastly, each chapter does end with a whole list of resources for readers to be able to dig deeper because we all are on our own journey. We all have our own perspectives. And
Right.
so, yeah, what do we hope? I don't know. I guess I hope that some readers write their own books so that I'm able to read what this brought them to think. I would love it if somebody told me someday that this book inspired them to write their own books.
Was there anything that you were hoping this book was going to change in terms of how feedback is given, or maybe address some myths or misconceptions about feedback?
Definitely. There are some pitfalls. Actually, chapter 3 talks about some of the pitfalls, and there is the Language Educator magazine also has an article out. I believe it was spring of last year,
Okay.
where some of this is outlined. But one of the things that often educators do is praise their students, and really praise is not a very effective form of feedback. In fact, it can even be detrimental because it really the power remains with the educator when they praise. And of course, we want to encourage our learners.
Right.
Encouragement is different than praise. But our book really shows how you can give descriptive feedback
Hmm.
by describing exactly what the learner is doing
Hmm.
and helping them by presenting a question about what they might do next. So in that way, a learner is empowered instead of praise, advice. Oftentimes, unfortunately, learners get evaluation without any kind of descriptive feedback.
Right.
It's
Right.
just a number or a letter. So those are some of the things that we really wanted to change, as well as, equitable grading practices are really near and dear to me personally. So, all three of us, but it's definitely been a baby of mine for a while. So that chapters means a lot to me.
And what do you imagine the conversations to be, or what do you hope what are the conversations that you think this book will inspire in faculty room, in teacher
Mhm.
lounges? I mean, feedback is, we always talk about it. Oh, they don't, I give all this feedback and then the student didn't read it. Or so what, how do you see those conversations? Oh, I read this book that Karen Nickel wrote. So
So, well, we designed the book really to be a book that teams of educators could work with.
right. Mhm.
It certainly can be used by individuals, but we know there's a lot of power in collaboration. I mean, that's how we came to this work. We worked through this in collaboration, right? So we call it a guidebook, but maybe really there are a lot of your turn sections in here. It really makes it more of a workbook. So we help
Yes.
educators really work through the samples together to increase their inter-rater reliability. They look at these, like how learners put language together and then compare it to some performance domain indicators. We hope they use the templates to give feedback because you know, none of us have a lot of time, right? We always want more time. But when we can get our learners to work with us and use the self-assessments and some of the strategies in here, it makes it a partnership, really. And learning and teaching should be a partnership, right? I think one thing that makes this book really unique is that it gives voice to learners. You can hear it in the samples and you can hear it in, there's strategies in there that are targeted really to empower learners to manage their own learning. And we also include a small section in each of the domain chapters where our learners are giving advice to other learners about it. Um, and so, yeah, it can be used. We hope it is used with individual educators. And yeah, we hope it's talked about at lunchrooms. Teams of educators can come together. I think it makes a great teacher prep book, a great teacher prep text,
Yeah.
as well as, professional development experience. I mean, I don't know, maybe somebody even wants to design a book group around it. That'd be great.
I'm hoping we can make the book club a little bit more hands-on because I feel like
Mhm.
this book is lends itself to it. So,
Yeah.
we'll see. It always depends a little bit on how many people participate in the book club.
Mhm.
But I would definitely want to have a more practical approach to it with the teachers.
Yeah, I think it's designed where it can really be used. You can work through it over time pretty intensely. One thing that you can do is chapters 1 through 4 are kind of introductory, and then chapters 5 through 9 focus each on a rubric domain. One
Uh-huh.
way that you could choose to do it is just to read the descriptions of all the domains first, then
Mhm.
go back and dig into 1 or 2 domains as a group, thinking about just how that works and then go from there.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Sure.
So looking back, what has surprised you most since finishing the
Mm.
book? Maybe did you receive some readers' reactions, or maybe you discovered something about yourself or about feedback or language teaching that you didn't know before?
Sure. Well, we were also talking about this at the beginning here before you started the recording, I believe. But for myself, when I first held the book, I thought, oh my goodness, it's not small. It reminds me of my phone book from my hometown when I was a kid. There's so much in there. There's a lot in there, but don't be afraid because it's many pages are templates and ready to use resources. So
Yes.
it's not full of dense text to read, but it really is meant to be things that can be used.
And
Um,
showing some sample pages. So
yes,
yes,
yes. So
definitely.
we had a great response to the book, and we've had opportunities to present work with educators, on various topics. A lot of things, the work that we've done that we put into the book, for example, in addition to just feedback, some of the presentations and consultations that we've done have been focused more specifically on grading or
Mhm.
on intercultural communication, because that is one of our major rubric domains in the book.
Yes.
Um, we've also given presentations on strategies that learners can use to understand and develop language in each of the domains. And
Mhm.
then Megan and I will be presenting at Central States in Chicago in the spring on self-assessment strategies. So
Oh,
all of those things have been part of that book, you know, even though it is ultimately around feedback, there's a lot in there. And
cool.
Megan and Sarah and I don't know, we just gained so much from working together, creating this book together. And I know for myself and for both of them, we pull from this book all the time with the current work we're doing with educators and learners. So yeah, it's been beneficial just from that alone.
Like you said, you wrote the book you wanted to have.
Right. Why not?
Um, as we're talking, these are the questions that I said we would address, but
Mhm,
not but, and
mhm,
I realized that it's kind of hard to have a discussion about anything language learning relating without addressing a little bit the topic of AI, right?
mhm.
So I can't remember, was this 2023 that the book came out, or 2024?
2024. Yeah,
2024.
yeah, it was the end of 2024. Mhm,
Right. So you finish the book and then suddenly AI is everywhere. And
mhm.
everybody's talking about AI. First of all, does AI have a role to play in learner feedback, in your opinion?
I think it could. I think there's a couple of different aspects of AI. I mean, I think one big thing in the book is just empowering learners. And I think when learners are empowered, they are less likely to choose AI and present something written by AI as their own work. If a learner is confident that they understand what it is that they're supposed to do, they're confident in their skills,
Mm.
and they understand what to do and how to do it, they're much more likely to do it. So that's one aspect of AI that gets talked about a lot as well. It wasn't exactly your question, I understand. Then
No, it is. You're right.
Mhm, mhm,
It's important to consider that aspect.
mhm.
It's one more thing for teachers to consider as they're giving feedback on something that the students didn't write themselves. So,
Right,
I think,
right. But I think what we really wanted to do was empower learners to give themselves feedback, use the tools, use the research, and not have to rely even on us, let alone on some AI tool out there. Um, I was recently in a situation where I was observing a lesson that a teacher had taught, and it was on a tool that had automatically put comments in. The AI generator had already commented on the teacher's performance, and the
oh,
teacher got in there and commented on that. It was supposed to be a conversation between me and the teacher, but AI jumped in. And I mean, the comments weren't bad, but it wasn't what we were trying to focus on.
mhm.
So, eh, I mean, back to pitfalls of feedback. I mean, one of the big pitfalls is when the learner gets just too much feedback,
Mm,
they don't know what to focus on.
right.
And can you write a better prompt for AI? Probably. But how much time are you spending writing a prompt for AI when you could actually get a teacher to give you the targeted feedback and teach you how to look for the things that you need to look for and just do it yourself. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, this is something that I read about, talk about on a daily basis because it's the nature of my job. And
mhm,
I'm constantly confronted to examples of poor uses of AI.
mm,
And I often think, no, it's not. Don't use AI to write your student feedback. If you want, you can use AI to proofread your comment, to kind of check the tone of your comment. I know that I do that with
mhm,
emails sometimes when I read my email
yeah,
and I'm thinking, is this supportive? Is this the tone that I'm trying to convey? But
mhm,
I want the substance to be mine because I mean, when we give feedback, I feel like it's really a very personal relationship between us and the student, and the students are trusting us to
mhm,
evaluate their performance, and they didn't
mhm.
necessarily entrusted a machine to do that. So there are so many different layers. to
I think, yeah, you hit the nail on the head there with, I mean, we started the conversation talking about feedback is building that relationship. And
yes.
that's how I felt when I was confronted with, this AI had already come in. I'm like, you're getting in the way of my relationship with this student.
Mhm.
Because it is important to build that and to have a variety of perspectives too, not just my feedback, but maybe a different educator's feedback. But yeah.
It's
Yeah.
here, so
Mhm.
I
Yep.
feel like we had to talk about it. I feel like it's like just like it kind of interfered with your evaluation, it just
Hmm.
interferes with every discussion.
Hmm.
It kind of
Hmm.
hijacks every discussion. Um, well, thank you so much for answering my questions. Is there anything else that you would like to share or that we didn't touch on that we didn't address?
I
You know.
don't think so. I just want to say that, both Megan and Sarah are fabulous to work with. And I really, appreciate that we could all come together from, the different worlds that, similar and different worlds that we inhabit. And yeah, if we do get a chance to be back again, I'll bring them along with me, I hope. And
Yes,
we
absolutely.
can.
After we've read the book, I
Great.
love to do that when the authors are willing because I think it brings
Mhm.
just yet another layer, a different perspective. And I know that our book club members really enjoy this aspect of the book club. We have a really small group here. I'm going to check the
Mhm.
chat, but if you want to unmute yourself or ask a question in the chat, go ahead. Don't hesitate. Karen is here. We have Claudia, Maida. Kathleen, Christy. If you have any questions, don't hesitate. And, in the meantime, join the book club. Like I said, it's free, it's informal, it's an incredibly supportive community. It's entirely asynchronous. So I usually post the questions on the Friday, and then you have the entire Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Usually the conversation picks up Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and then a little Saturday, and then we tackle the following chapters. Like I said, I've been doing this for 8 years. We've never had an issue in the book club. You know how people say, oh, it's asynchronous, people don't hear themselves. I've never seen a crossword. It's a very supportive, and it doesn't mean that we always agree on everything. Quite the opposite. It's a very engaged community, but it's also a very supportive community where everybody is there because they care about teaching and learning languages. So I would like to encourage everybody to join. Um, and I'm going to post the questions tomorrow night because I have to start reading. I'm a little behind, but it's okay. I've reserved several hours tomorrow, and then the questions will be posted on Friday. And yeah, you can jump at any time. So
Well, there are some discussion questions just right in the book too, so you can,
I, that's
you can
great.
certainly
That's
pull some of those to begin if that's helpful for you because
Yes, I usually do a mix,
yeah. Mhm.
just because the ICLS teachers have kind of a unique student
Mhm.
population.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah. So I'm going to read the question
Yeah.
now. Wendy
Mhm.
is asking, would you say that feedback is closely related to rubrics? Were you able to test some of your assumptions about feedback?
Yes, we definitely built this book around rubrics. We took all the actual tools and built rubrics because that is the way that we see being able to give really powerful descriptive feedback and empowering students because they know exactly what the expectations are. Um, and yeah, testing some of our assumptions about feedback. Certainly, we used this for years as we were learning about it, and then we used actual learner samples, and then we did meet with teachers during the time that we um, revised some rubrics that we were using and got their feedback on them, and they used them with learners. So it wasn't an extensive study because it wasn't meant to be that, but it was, I feel confident in the rubrics that are in there. And we worked so closely with ACTFL to make sure that they were in line with the research that went into many of those tools that they have as well. So yes, rubrics is an important part. And I should say this isn't feedback like how do you respond to a student in the moment, where you're having a conversation and do you correct them or not, or how do you correct them? This is really that overarching feedback of how do learners show evidence of their learning through their performance, really, through how do we elicit that? And then how do they show their learning? And then what do we do about it? And it might be summative, it might be formative, but we're always pointing back to a rubric because that grounds us as well as learners.
Yeah.
Thanks for the question, Wendy.
Thank you, Wendy.
Mhm.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for coming. And like I said, if you haven't done so yet, jump on the book club and start reading with us on Monday.
Thank you. I appreciate you inviting me and hope to see you again. I'm super excited to hear your reactions.
Thank you, Karen.
Mhm.